This is the Tom Baby Tales, and I'm your host, Shannon Evans. I write about a small town in northeast Mississippi called Columbus, and sometimes the rest of the state. Today, we're going to be talking about public records requests and public records reviews that you don't have to request. So let's start with talking about why are public meetings and financial documents, public figures, especially elected officials, open to review, and why is it important for citizens to investigate the financial stability of elected officials and how they run their personal businesses outside of their governmental role. First of all, public records requests and the accessibility of government officials' documents are fundamental principles of democratic accountability. This is for informational and educational purposes and explores the critical importance of transparency in governmental operations. So first of all, let's talk about some of the key principles of public records access. Public records provide citizens with insights into government decision making and allow for independent verification of governmental actions and the behaviors of elected people. It prevents potential corruption and the misuse of public resources. A lot of the stuff that protects this is the Freedom of Information Act, which was signed, I believe, in 1964 by Lyndon B. Johnson. And then there's, of course, the state level public records laws and the constitutional protections for public information access. Now, what is some of our rationale for this? There are these financial disclosure requirements, one of which is in our state is governed by the statement of economic interest that individual elected officials have to fill out and file with the state. So they have to disclose things like their personal financial interests, their potential conflicts of interest, the sources of income, and their investment portfolios. Now, there are some ethical considerations of why they have to do this. One, it prevents abuse of governmental power and ensures that they remain somewhat of a certain level of integrity, and it provides some mechanisms for public oversight, which is what we're going to be doing today. So some of the types of accessible public records that we should have access to are financial documents like budget allocations, expense reports, travel expenditures, compensation details of your elected officials, meeting minutes, public hearing transcripts, legislative session records, committee deliberation documents. So even at the city council or board of aldermen's level, you should have all of these types of records at your beck and call. They also have to keep communication records. So they have to keep official emails, correspondence related to public business, policy development communications, and that includes messages on their phones, whether it's their personal phone or it's the phone that belongs to the city, the county, the government. If they're doing government work on that phone, or there's government communications or publicly recorded public communications that should be unfettered access to the public, then they have to have that stuff. Now, you as a citizen have certain mechanisms to look for things. I have done a lot of public records requests, which is a process. You submit a formal written request, and some of the places that you will ask to do this will have forms and some will not. Sometimes you have to make up your own form. So you can find samples online. In that form, you have to specify exactly what documents you want. You have to pay potential administrative fees for copies, mailing, the time they spend researching, although it has to be reasonable. It can sometimes be waived depending on the state and the locality. And then you receive the documents within a legally mandated time frame. So it's within 7 to 10 working days generally. Now, there are all kinds of strategies of what you do with it. I'm mostly looking at cross-referencing multiple document sources for consistency. And then I'm analyzing financial transactions to make sure that they didn't take their kids to Disneyland or Disney World on our dollar, or they aren't out on Sunday having dinner and having gin martinis or whatever their favorite thing is at the local steakhouse when they're not doing governmental business. I'm also looking for confidential personnel records and public personnel records. Some things get to be redacted, things like Social Security numbers, and the public entity is either going to just straight up obey the rules and get you the structured request procedures, or you have to go through an appeals process for denied requests. And that's what I'm getting ready to do, is to start an appeals process, because I've been given incomplete information, and information has nothing to do with what I have requested and have paid for. So let's talk about some of the civic responsibilities we have as citizens. We have to understand how governmental transparency works. We have to be able to analyze the content critically, and we have to know how to do further research to understand acronyms and abbreviations and some inside terminology. Now, public records access it's a real cornerstone of our democratic governance, and it empowers you as a citizen to monitor, evaluate, and participate in governmental processes. By maintaining these transparent systems, society can foster trust, prevent corruption, and ensure responsible public leadership. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Mississippi laws governing public records access. There's a legal framework for public records in Mississippi. The Mississippi Public Records Act was codified under Mississippi Code 25-61-1 to 25-61-17. Okay, what does that mean? It's a comprehensive guideline for public records access, and it ensures transparency in Mississippi's governmental operations. That means from the state level all the way down to the local community and any governmental agencies that are operating within the state. So here's some key provisions of the Mississippi Public Records Law. The definition of public records are all documents created or received by governmental entities. That includes electronic and physical records, and it covers state, county, and municipal government documents. Now, who has access? Any person can request public records. There's no requirement to state a reason for the request, and there's minimal identification needed to submit a request. Twice now, I have made a request to ask for specific content from the Columbus Housing Authority, and the two previous requests I've made I've been asked twice what was my reason for my request. I don't have to have a reason to have access. Now, the first time I was pretty direct with them. The second time I said, I just want them. So we don't have to tell them what you're looking for, and you don't have to state your reason for looking for their request. So what's the procedure? In Mississippi, you have to do a written request to a specific organization, and it can be submitted either by email, physical mail, in person at the agency. You must provide specific description of requested documents. So I said I want the emails, I want all attachments, et cetera, et cetera. So I was very specific in what I was looking for, and I put the date range. I wanted from January 1st, 2023 to present. And I wanted some very specific emails between a contracted advisor, Rusty Walker, who is a city councilman down in Gulfport, who's doing contract work with his firm with Columbus Housing Authority. And I wanted all of those emails that he had. But anyways, they're not complete and they didn't adhere to the rules. So yeah, I'm going to have to go back and kick some bushes and rocks over to try and get the complete emails that I need. Anyways, the agencies must respond within 7 business days, and they can request an extension if it's a very complex request, but they must provide a reason for potential denial of the access. Now, there are some exemptions specific to Mississippi. For instance, you don't need anybody's personal medical record. You cannot get information on ongoing criminal investigations, and you can't get personnel files with sensitive information, student educational records, or confidential economic development negotiations. You just can't. So just knowing the rules, that still gives you a lot you can ask about. Now you can ask for reasonable copy fees. It shouldn't be like $1 a page. That's absolutely outrageous considering what paper costs. The administrative costs can be charged. Those too should not be outrageous. And I think the Columbus Housing Authority is charging me an outrageous amount. They must provide a cost estimate before documents are reproduced, and you have to pay it before they will even start doing the work. And a fee waiver is possible for public interest requests. Now, all of my fee waiver requests have been denied, but I'm still going to ask because I do think everything I'm asking for within reason, except for the emails, should be already out and published for public view. Now, this is what you do. You put forth a written formal document, you identify the documents, and then you give a very precise scope, and that's usually by date. And then they come back and they tell you what it's what. Now, the interesting thing is there are a lot of records where you do not have to go digging around and filling out a public records request. You can do the actual research. One thing is land records. Now, I'm going to start with showing you how I go about searching for official records online for more recent purchases. Now, I cannot usually do ancient deed lookup, but most deeds have been updated in an online version with most counties in Mississippi, at least since through 2000, some of them earlier. Now, where we're going to be looking, which is in Harrison County down in the Gulf, we're going to look at some documents that could go all the way back to the 80s. They've put a lot of their more recent deeds and filings online. So let's get started. So I went to landrecords.co.harrison.ms.us. All you got to do is look up your land records for your county and in your state. So I have to click this terms of usage. And then, as you can see, I've been looking. I've set this up. Ferdinand Walker, their beginning date's 1800, although I doubt their early documents are online. And I went all the way to, let's go to the present. Okay. Now I can make these all down to the deeds, errors, general plat books, or trust. I can narrow these down. I can go all the way down to deed books. Let's see if we got any tax documents. So we got oil and gas. There's all kinds of stuff down here. Trust books. So if you know what you're looking for, trust book, release of tax liens, we got all kinds of things we're looking for. All right. I'm going to just pull the general. Let's just pull everything in general, and I'm going to search the records. Now, this one's going to return 105 documents. That's a lot. And I'm going to set this so I can see 50 at a time. There are 50 at a time. Now, all of these, I can see different documents, but the one I want to look at today is, it may not be on this page. How about this one? Gulfport City Planning Commission and R.B. Walker. What is this one? Let's look at what this document is. There it is. I'm going to pop it out so I can see it. Oops. And I'm going to go, let's go to the next page. Oh, it's a parcel. You can see the map of the parcel and where it's located. These are the parcels he owned or owns. These are the descriptions. Okay, so I can look at all these. And he went through some sort of planning commission. Let's look at this. It says the owner's dedication. Oh, he and his dad, because Ferdinand B. Walker over here is his dad, and this is Rusty Walker, and who signed all these documents. Yeah, it's just a surveyor's certificate. Nothing of much interest to me. Okay, so I'm now going to go down and look a little further. I want to see, ooh, what's this one? And I'm just going to keep poking around in these documents until I'm happy with that I found the document I'm looking for. All of this is public records. None of this is a secret. So this is a land deed. It was filed. If you look at the top up here, it says the instrument was filed on October 21st of 2013 at 4:16 in the afternoon. There's 6 pages. It was prepared by the Alfred Conan of Pertile and Conan Law Office. It's related to a piece of land that's in section 30 and all the descriptions. And then it tells us that this Mamie Street Properties, and they owe $1,013,358.50. Now, who's it owed to? Let's go up here. The indenture made between Mamie Street Properties, whose address is 17 River Bend, as grantor. They're the ones who owe the debt, and Ferdinand Walker the fourth and Ferdinand B. Walker. So they bought this piece of land for $1,013,358.50. And what piece of property is this? Let's go all the way to the end. It's a bunch of parcels of land. Now, what's interesting about these is these parcels of land, I believe, were purchased with the $1.2 million that Rusty and his father were the trustees for and borrowed from the Leggett Foundation. So let's go back. Let me see if I can go back to the Leggett properties. So I'm going to go back a page. I got to go back to the previous page. And here is the Leggett property, or the Leggett. Yeah, here we go. It's a warranty deed. So this one was from 2007, and the revocable trust gave a bunch of tracts of land, 1 and 2, to Ferdinand and Rusty Walker. And it says for $10, but usually that's just a way of because there has to be a dollar value. But it was filed on April 13th, 2007. So all of this is public record, y'all. Now, one of the other public records that we could gain access to in here, is this it? Nope, it's not that one. Here we go. You can also find out if anyone's delinquent on their taxes. Now, what's interesting about that? The state of Mississippi funds on delinquent taxes, especially of elected officials. I'm gonna have to open up my phone now, and I'm gonna read to you what the state statute says for elected officials. There's a Mississippi Code provision that says elected officials must maintain current tax status. Delinquent taxes can result in disqualification from office, potential legal proceedings, and removal from elected position. There are certain tax compliances, which include state taxes, county taxes, municipal taxes, and personal property taxes. So I want you to look up here. While this is not his home, this is a piece of personal property. This is something that he and his wife own. And let's see about this one. This one is the same piece of property. So in 2024, it was delinquent, and in 2025, it was delinquent. So those are the dates that it was filed, but let's look at the date of when it went delinquent. The first one are the 2021 taxes. And the address given, of course, is Future Spec Consulting, which is Rusty's business, and 45 Hardy Court, blah, blah, blah. The description of the property is Lot 13, Block 30 in Gulfport Bayou View subdivision. So I'm guessing this is a lot that he owns. So this one went delinquent in 2021. He eventually must have paid it because he still owns it, but Christiana Trust was the one who picked up the bill. And they'll do that in hopes that you forget to pay that tax bill for 3 years, and then it becomes their property for the taxes. So he was late in 2021, and then again in 2023, which is what came due in April of 2025. And those taxes on that same piece of property were paid by Fortress Credit Realty Income Trust. Now, as I said before, these are all public documents. I didn't get these anywhere but the courthouse, and they're online. I showed you where I got it, right here. All those documents are in here. You just have to go through these and find them. So let me go back. Let me talk a little bit further. I'm going to go to Rusty's document with his first judicial court instrument that was filed. What elected officials are obligated to have an annual disclosure of their tax status and mandatory reporting of any tax delinquencies. Did he report his tax delinquencies? I also am curious, was he ever delinquent on his home tax? Which means I can go look up his homestead exemption and whether he lost that because he didn't pay his taxes in a timely manner. I'm curious because we're entrusting this guy with lots of money in the city of Gulfport, and my town is entrusting him with hundreds of thousands of dollars. So what's the consequences of tax delinquency? There's a potential suspension from office. There's public record of tax delinquency for them. There's a mandatory notification to election authorities. Has he done that? There's also some long-term implications: potential permanent disqualification, loss of political credibility, and legal challenges to current office holding. Now, accessing land and tax records. Accessing land and tax records. There are public access mechanisms, like going into the website of the county clerk's office, using their public portal, using property databases. You can also go to the Harrison County Tax Office and look things up on the map if you have the address. So you could take the address from this and you could go look it up and see if he's paid all of his taxes. You can also contact the local tax assessor's office. You'll need to know how to read some of these documents and the numbers that they want. One of the things they often ask for is this right here, which is called the PPIN number. It's the property identification number, essentially. So these things are all accessible, and they allow us to hold elected officials accountable. One of the things that I take as a key takeaway of all this is that there is comprehensive land documentation out there, and there are strict tax compliance rules for elected officials. Now, are they carried out? Does anybody ever ask? Does anybody ever tell Rusty Walker, you shouldn't be in that position. You should be suspended without pay until you get your house in order. Now, his house may already be in order. He may be up to date on all his other taxes. I don't know. But generally, when someone doesn't pay the taxes on something, they're delinquent in taxes in multiple areas. We need a transparent access to all of his records, both his tax records as they exist. We need tax records for his business, and we need public access to his governmental records. And there need to be clear consequences for his tax delinquency by the city of Gulfport, especially by the people there. Just remember, the Mississippi Code is annotated. It's pretty easy to follow. You can look it up. It's not that hard to do what I'm doing. There's no mystery here. There's no magic formula. It's just good old-fashioned research, and anyone can do it. I'm not a lawyer, never pretend to be, never would be. I am just a citizen. I do historic research, so I'm always in courthouses, so I'm a little bit familiar with deeds, but I even have to consult with other people to help me to understand some documents, but most of them are pretty clear. You can put them through some trained AI tools that will help you interpret them. Now, you have to be careful about that because not all of them are good and not all of them are accurate, but it'll give you a good general understanding of what the words mean. The other thing is that a lot of the legal, I'm going to call it mumbo jumbo, the legalese that's in these documents are often explained in parentheses, especially in deeds. I want to encourage you to go out and see what your elected official has been up to. Next episode I'll show you how to go look at their statement of economic interest if they are elected in the state of Mississippi. And every state's supposed to have that. And it's clearly going to be on a different website than where ours is. Ours is with the Secretary of State. But I'm not doing anything that you can't go look up. And I think that this is something that's really critical, especially considering the world we currently live in and the number of elected officials who are under the radar and are responsible for large amounts of money when they can't even take care of their own personal finances or their professional finances in their own businesses. And we're supposed to trust them to take care of our money. And it is our money, whether it's federal, state, or local. You're paying those taxes. You're paying taxes every time you eat out, every time you make a purchase. Those are our dollars. So those are our tax dollars. And they're going to these communities and they must be held accountable. And the quickest way to hold them accountable is by doing your own public records request. The Freedom of Information Act was written for you and me, not for them. I want to thank you for coming on my podcast, Tom Bigby Tales, and my YouTube channel, Tom Bigby Tales. Until next time, this is Shannon Evans.